I'm gonna apologize right now for the lighting. It's partially cloudy outside, so the sun keeps being a bit temperamental coming in and out. But we're gonna make it work anyways. I wanted to show you guys just the tips and kind of things that I live by when it comes to decorating my house with houseplants. I have a really small, limited space, so this is kind of a setup that I need to use to utilize all the space that I have. And I feel like a lot of us kind of have more limited spaces for our plants, so I thought this would be a bit more helpful than just a traditional, like, this is the best way to style your plants and all that sort of stuff. So we're gonna start with this bookshelf behind me because that is where the majority of my plants live. And I first wanted to run through a few like basic things that you need to keep in mind when you do go about styling your house with plants and just where to put them and all that. And if you want it to, you know, look like design and all that sort of stuff. First things first, if you do have a bookshelf, that's a great place for plants, and I recommend you put a lot of your plants on those bookshelves and then that bookshelf in a place that receives a lot of light, obviously. But also, it does look a lot nicer if you mix it around with some actual books in there. And this is the perfect place for all those little trinkety things that just usually end up in the garbage, or just, you know, just, I am a sucker for just little nothings that you find at antique stores and all that sort of stuff, and those are the perfect things for bookshelves. So if you have any of those, and I feel like a lot of people in the plant community do have quite a few of those little just like random things that don't really have a spot or a use, but they just look nice, or we like them or attach them for some reason, those are perfect to put on your bookshelf. I don't have many right now just because I haven't had the chance to go out shopping for them, and I've been a bit better about spending my money on nothing but plants and clothes, so I haven't gotten a lot of those little random purchases that I usually get. It's always best to kind of have a lot of mixture in your bookshelf, and you can do this with the pots, you can do this with the books, and you can do that with those trinkety things that I mentioned earlier. But those all add different textures, different shapes, and all that sort of stuff to your shelf, and that is going to be what makes it look a lot more cohesive and a lot just nicer, cleaner, and all that sort of stuff. Now, if we're talking about floor plants, you want to mix up the height, and not just with plants in various like growth stages and all that, but I'm talking plant stands, different sized pots, pots with feet on them, just anything and everything that you can think of, use those to put your plants on. Like, I have several pots that are pots, but also plant stands, in that the pots are super raised with metal stands and that sort. I have a lot of pots with feet on them and just all that sort of stuff you want to utilize as much as you can. I even put a lot of my pots on my ottoman. I switch them out every so often, just depending on what I'm feeling that day. And that's another thing, if we're gonna be a bit, you know, jump from one subject to the next. It's totally cool and great, in fact, if you just switch out your plant's position every now and then. Not drastically to the point where there are conditions, like in terms of like lighting, temperature, all that sort of stuff are different, but enough to just keep it fresh, keep it cool, all that sort of stuff. So that is the overarching theme here, is various heights, various textures, various shapes, and just various things. You don't want all the same things in one spot, or if you do, just make it a lot more interesting than just the same thing. Also, a super easy way, especially if you're renting and you can't put holes in the wall or ceiling or whatever, is to get a clothes rack. It doesn't always look the best, but once you wrap some vines around there, you don't see the clothes rack a whole lot. And I have one right now that has double racks on it. So it has a bar up here, and then it has a bar like in the middle. And so I can fit a lot more plants on there, and then I can wrap the vines around the middle bit of it as well. And I know the chrome like hanging bars doesn't look great all the time in everybody's space, but it does the trick. And if you want to hang up plants, it's a really cool thing to kind of build up over time to put a lot of plants on, and then eventually you'll have like this living wall type thing. So I'm going to show you around my apartment, just the few bits that I have where I do actually decorate a bit more with plants, and I'm a bit more or less intentional with the plants that I do have. Because on windowsills and stuff like that, it's just a free for all there. I just kind of put whatever fits there, because those are usually just propagations and whatever else that I can't find a spot for. But there's a few sections where I do actually just change it up to look nicer or all that sort of stuff. So first off is this plant shelf right here. And as you can see, we have this Hoya on the far right, and he is branching all the way across to that pothos that is trailing down. And like I said, this isn't perfect, so like everybody can have their own opinions, and you might not like how I set mine up, but that's okay. So what I do is I have a lot of stacked plants here. So I have this Hoya, I have this string of turtles, and then I have two propagation vases back there. And it just adds a bit more like layering almost to the shelf. And the propagations don't need a whole lot of light, so that that makes it a bit more convenient that I can put propagations back there instead of like full-on plants. So I have my Hoya, my string of turtles, and then my silver stripe philodendron. And then you'll see over on this side, if I get over there real quick, and then over on this side, I have a lot of my books, a lot from school, a lot of just books that I like, but I just have them stacked. And you can see I have this blue one here with a lot of just like white and then red on the text here, which coincides with the red on this book here, which just makes it a bit more cohesive, which is kind of what I go for. And then this pothos right here, he is getting a bit long, so I will probably rearrange this shelf to make this not be so busy. But that is this main place right here, and the moral of this space is that you can layer propagations in the back to create those contrasting textures with like the polka dots on those leaves and the different colored vases and everything. And you can still stack quite a lot of plants in this one shelf. So my camera did die, so we have a new one now, but I'm just gonna show you this other shelf that I have right here. This was right above the previous shelf, you can see with the pothos here and all that. But this is the same sort of idea. You've got the books right here, and then you've got another plant that's not quite trailing yet, so he's got that difference in length. If he was trailing, I would probably move him somewhere else. So as you can see, he's getting close to it right here. And then I have a Hartley philodendron barely coming in up here, but he is a bit less like intentional up there just because that shelf is kind of a catch-all for the rest of the books that I have that don't look nice in these other shelving spots. So yeah, my Hoya reaches all the way up here, so I do kind of untangle him sometimes just because I don't want him to wrap around my pothos too much. But yeah, like I said, the same sort of idea. This one is more so about the lengths of the plants. So you have two pothos up here. This one is trailing, so that's why I have him up here with this one that is not trailing. Like I said, if he was trailing, I would move him completely, and I would probably even swap him out anyways because of the previous shelf where we have him going into the silver stripe down here. Now onto the last shelf that I like intentionally set up, because the bottom shelf and the top shelf are kind of more catch-alls for like spare plants or to spare anything that I have. This one even is a bit less intentional as well than the top one. This one is more about the pots that I use, particularly this square one over here, because if I have just like all these round pots here, it just doesn't look as nice as if like I have pots that actually look like they fit the space. So this square one just fitting quite nicely in here makes it look a lot better than if it just was another round pot, particularly because I have this little box lined up with these books, lined up with this pot. It just all kind of flows a bit better than if I had, for instance, like this pot in that space. And this shelf as well, the intent is to kind of cover up what's behind those plants. And what's behind those plants is just a bunch of watering trays, but it's just mostly to cover that all up and still have like quite a lot of light getting to them. But these ones also have propagations in the front, and these propagations are ones that have more active growth points, so I wanted them to be more so in the sun. And yeah, so like in terms of technique, if we want to call it techniques and all that sort of stuff, this one is literally just to cover up what's behind it while still having some sort of continuity between like the box, the books, and the pot. So that's mostly what goes behind this one. And like I said, there's no rhyme or reason to a lot of things that are done in my apartment, like decoration wise or plant styling wise, but this one, there's like little things for each shelf or each spot that I did it for a reason type thing. And these are just things to keep in mind. Like I said, this isn't going to be like the perfect setup for anybody or anything like that. And this isn't to say that my space is like perfectly laid out or anything like that. This is just things to keep in mind as you do start styling with your plants and get more plants to style with. This is another area and one of the main areas that I have a lot of my plants in. And this is just a little stand from Walmart for like $12. And then this is my plant stand slash pot that I got from Walmart as well. And these are the two height things that I was talking about before. So we have this stand, which is shorter than that stand, which if I move this camera down a bit, there's all these plants here on the floor. And so because these are all floor plants and all just in their like main pots, it's really important to have those kind of height differences in the back. And if I had like a shelving unit that started from the floor up, as I've seen lots of people like make and do, I would probably use something like that. But because I don't, it's kind of just making do with what I have with like the stand back here and then the taller plant stand that I have. If we get closer and take a closer look to some of these plants, you can see like right here, I have this wooden plant stand connected to the Scindapsus, and that even creates a bit of variety between the different plants that I have sitting down here. Otherwise, all the plants would be the same exact size, and at the same exact height. So it's just all a bit more intentional than just, oh, plant's gonna go here, plant's gonna go there type stuff. And even down to the pots that I choose to put over here, it makes a bit of a difference there as well. Because if all of them were the same exact size, that would be really boring because they would all look the exact same and there would be no differences between them. You can see even the pots that I have on the stand are different sizes, and I mean that's again done for a certain reason as well, and that's so you can see the one behind it, or you know, just the differences between the two. And then obviously I have that kind of colored one in the back, and that one's being hidden for a reason because it's just not as nice as the ones out here in the front. And then even things down to like this ottoman on the right here, or the stack of ottomans that I have this my ruby ficus tree on that, and then I have my plant rack right next to it, and you can see it just creates a lot more interest with the difference in planters, the difference in heights, and then wrapping that Brazil down at the bottom. It's a lot more interesting than just putting the plants on a regular hanger or hanging them off a bookshelf and all that. You can do it however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but it just makes it a lot more fun to kind of rearrange your plants and decide where you want them to go. And then I did want to touch on one more thing. And I wanted to touch on one more thing because I know at the beginning I said that you shouldn't have multiple of the same plants in one area, but these two Marantas just sit here on my desk together, and this is an example of ones that I quite like the same plant being right here together because they're similar enough to keep together, but then they're different enough with their pots and all that sort of stuff that they still look really nice together. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that I wasn't like bashing on the same sort of plants being together. It was just in certain situations. So that's how I style a lot of my plants and just what kind of goes through my mind when I do decide to put them somewhere for an extended amount of time. I hope you guys found this helpful, and if you like these style of videos or just this kind of information, let me know down in the comments below. This is a lot different from a lot of this content that I usually do on my channel, so I just wanted to know if it'd be helpful for you guys. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I'll see you later.